Call the meeting to order. We do have sign-in sheets in the back for people attendance or anyone who wants to make a speak at our presentation. And so take advantage of that. When Don gets back in a minute, I might ask him for an overview if we haven't gotten too far. But in the meantime, we had, I guess we should call roll. Could you call roll?
Alderman Boyd.
Present.
Commissioner Bradley.
Here.
Commissioner Brown.
Here.
Alderwoman Cruzen.
Here.
Commissioner Peoples.
Here.
Commissioner Powers.
Here.
Commissioner Allen.
Here.
Commissioner Strother.
Here.
And Chair Vizintainer.
Here. Okay, thank you. First item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from our December 2nd meeting. Has everyone read it? Anybody got a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so moved and seconded that we approve the minutes. Are there any changes or comments to those minutes as they were distributed? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Or should
I think we should do a roll call.
Okay, let's call a roll on that, please.
Alderman Boyd.
Aye.
Commissioner Bradley.
Aye.
Commissioner Brown.
Aye.
Alderwoman Cruzen.
Aye.
Commissioner Peoples.
Aye.
Commissioner Powers.
Aye.
Commissioner Allen. Commissioner Strother.
Aye.
And Chair Vizintainer.
Aye.
And motion passes with all present voting yes.
Okay, Don, would you like to make any introductory comments to our meeting? Or?
Other than I'm going to be unusually quiet tonight until I make a presentation at the end.
Okay.
And Roman is the first up.
Okay. So our first item is a public hearing. We'll start out with some presentations, and then we'll open it up for the public hearing for anyone who'd like to make comments. And I would like to point out that there will be a written comment period, and I'll go over this again, that will close on January 20th. And so therefore, because of that written comment period, we will not vote on this until our next regular scheduled meeting on February 3rd. So, Roman, would you like to start up?
Yep. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. This is a proposed amendment, number 15 of the City's Strategic Land Use Plan, or SLOOP as we tend to call it, which is the land use element of the City's Comprehensive Plan. As the Chair mentioned, I'll make a presentation that will touch on the overview of the site as well as present PDA's recommendation. We'll then have a presentation by Bill Keeling, of Thompson Coburn, who's representing the Lighthouse St. Louis Development Project. Also here tonight is Adam Harting of Lighthouse Development, LLC, the developer, and Mark Repking of BBN, LLC, who is one of the property owners. At that point in time, the Planning Commission will open up the public hearing. The comment and review period will extend for another couple of weeks. 2 weeks from today will be the end of that, and then the Planning Commission will take a vote on the adoption of the amendment at the next Planning Commission meeting. This amendment number 15 is based on a proposed development project that's called Lighthouse St. Louis. You read about it in the Post-Dispatch recently. It's a multi-phase mixed-use development project. It's located at the very northern tip of the city in the Riverview neighborhood. The general boundaries are St. Louis County, unincorporated St. Louis County on the north, the Mississippi River on the east, I-270 on the south, and Riverview Drive on the west. The development site consists of 84 acres and 3 parcels, and the great bulk of that is located in the city, although 10.5 acres is located in the county. Now, it's important to note, though, that only 70 acres of that site will be developed, and that's the area shown here within the red outline. And that would include these 2 parcels, the smaller one that's within the yellow boundary line there, and this very large one here at the top. And that consists of 70 acres in the city. This third parcel here is actually split. A small portion of it is located in the city, but the great bulk of it is located in St. Louis County. And as you can see, directly north of the city limits is Watkins Creek, which is a environmentally sensitive creek, and essentially this area from the second parcel northward would be used as a buffer strip, and it would not be developed. So we're only talking about the area within the red boundary lines. The site, as you can see, is entirely vacant land. It most recently was used as a golf course and was sustained heavy damage during the floods during the mid-1990s that occurred. The site was recently raised out of the 100-year floodplain by the addition of 10 feet of fill, and that was sanctioned by a Section 404 permit that was granted by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. This is a photograph that was taken from a drone video that was provided by the developer. And during the course of Bill's presentation, he'll show you the entire drone video, I believe. I just had two photos in there to show the entire site. As you can see, the Mississippi River, the tree line is basically the northern boundary of the site, Riverview Drive, and then Interstate 270. And then the second photo closes in a little bit. You could see the interchange of I-270, Riverview Drive, the Missouri Welcome Center rest area at the first exit in the state of Missouri, a Motomart / Subway that's located across the street. You can see the site dips down in elevation as it goes underneath Interstate 270, and along the shore you can see the early beginnings of a river walk under construction. The following photographs are the ones that I took about a month or so ago. The photo on the left is looking eastward towards the river. Gives you a sense as to the size of the area. The photo on the right shows the proposed extension of the Riverfront Trail that would go underneath the I-270 bridge and hook up with the existing trail near the Chain of Rocks Bridge. These are some photos of the Riverwalk along the shore. The photo on the left is looking northward. The photo on the right is looking southward, and if you peer in the distance there, you can see the downtown. Across the street, you can see the interchange of I-270 and Riverview, which has exits both eastward and westward, so it's a full interchange. The rest area is shown on the right. Across Riverview is the Motomart and Subway, which I made reference to, and one of two single-family homes that are on the opposite side. There's a second single-family home and Coal Bank Road, which is a street that is very short. On the other side of the city limits is Watkins Creek, which you had seen earlier on the aerial photograph, as well as the adjacent pumping station that MSD maintains. There's a sign for the county limits, I guess, as the Riverview extends into the county. And to the right is some property to the north, which is owned by Massman Construction Company. You can see those cranes are used for loading and unloading materials as part of its business. This is a conceptual site plan that was submitted by the developer, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about this. I'm sure Bill will do that, but I did want to touch a little bit on the proposed uses for this development. It's estimated that if fully implemented, it would be about a $250 or $300 million development project, and it would include retail uses ranging in size from a gas station convenience store to a large-scale retail store. A hotel and some residential uses are proposed that would be built near the river, take advantage of the views. And a number of recreational uses and amenities would be included. Those are listed there and would be quite exciting to see and have happen. In addition, there are a number of infrastructure improvements that would be needed. There's currently no roads on the site or any utilities, so all of that would need to be constructed. I should remind you that this is a conceptual site plan, so it's obviously subject to change and could be revised. However, the proposed development project as it stands now would be in conflict with the city's strategic land use plan. The site is currently designated as a recreational open space preservation and development area, this area here shown in green, and that particular designation pretty much just allows recreational uses, open space, parks, things of that nature. So obviously, a development of this sort would be in conflict with that designation, and an amendment of the strategic land use plan would be needed in order for the development project to go forward. So amendment number 15 of the SLOOP is basically proposing to change the existing recreational open space designation for the two parcels that I referenced to a new category, that being a specially mixed-use area, which is defined as areas where it is intended that a unique mix of uses be preserved and developed. That designation would allow the commercial development to be built. It would also allow the recreational uses that I had cited earlier to be built and provide some access to the river that few St. Louisans currently enjoy. In addition, it would also further the city's adopted sustainability plan by implementing some of its strategies, and those are listed on the slide, including increasing riverfront development access, removing and changing infrastructure to improve the riverfront, and celebrating increasing activity along the riverfront. So if the amendment is approved to change the SLOOP category designation from the recreational open space recreation and development area to the specially mixed use area, would allow the project to go forward, and the map would basically be changed as shown here on the slide. With that, one other point I should mention before turning it over to Bill. In addition to amending the strategic land use plan, the existing zoning would not allow the development project to go forward. So as a follow-up effort, if the SLOOP amendment is approved at some point in time, there will be a change in zoning for the area, and it's looking like it'll probably be a proposed form-based district that would be established, and that would have to go back to the Planning Commission in future months. But with that, let me turn it over to Bill Keeling from Thompson Coburn, and he'll speak on behalf of the developer and property owner.
Thank you very much, Roman. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. I will hand out to you also an enlarged photo of what you're looking at. And first, let me just hit on a couple things, because there might be some easily confusion or going around. One thing is, this project envisions no new fill on this site. That train has left the station many, many years ago. And so the site is as it is. There's not going to be any new fill. It's fully permitted by the Corps of Engineers and FEMA. So so what you're doing here today, what the city's going to do, will have no impact on that situation at all. Also do want to stress that, yeah, we were very sensitive to Watkins Creek, and that's why the proposal has a buffer area to the north to protect Watkins Creek. The owners are in active negotiation with Massman Construction for a lease of that area, and we would do nothing with it. It would just be a complete buffer for the rest of the project. As Roman mentioned, this really is an exciting project, I think, for the city, because it's a large site, and it's kind of unique for the city, because you all don't get to do many highway interchanges off I-270. So this is kind of unusual in that regard. It gets the bike path under I-270 safely. That's on the Mississippi River bike path, so it can be extended further north easily without having to go on to Riverview, deal with that situation. It allows, we were in serious talks with Great Rivers Greenway as to them locating their trailhead at this site, which would open up the use of the Chain of Rocks Bridge, which is just to the south of this area. As some of you may know, they've had difficulties with that because of security problems at their parking lot. This site would present a safe location for them to stage out of. We also envisioned there being bike rentals at the site for people who just want to go up there and rent a bike, and then they could take it safely on a 3-minute bike ride under the 270 bridge to Chain of Rocks. This site allows for real water use 28 Susquehanna River. The project envisions a marina to be built at this site. It envisions there being a trailhead also for kayak and canoe operators here, who, as you can see from this map, they could easily, the star is where the site is, they could easily take people north to the Missouri River, put into the Missouri, come down through the confluence in canoes and kayaks, come back out safely at the marina that'll be built. We think that will open up the confluence to much greater level of tourism that currently exists. It really takes advantage of one of the great natural occurrences that's in this region. Also, there's going to be a river walk on here and a boardwalk that people can make use of. It's going to be a lighthouse. We're going to have recreational exhibition area for things such as car shows or, food shows, small recreations. Not going to be large concerts, but smaller concerts type of venue. We're going to have a facility with that overlooks the river, where people can have wedding receptions, have, anniversary dinners, things like that, take advantage of the river view that's there. This map does also show you that while this 70 acres, a tiny bit where the star is, this is in an area where there's really no shortage of open space. And in fact, the problem has not been a lack of open space in this area. It's really been a lack of having a hub area to take advantage of it. And in the picture, there's over 7,000 acres of park or recreational areas or open space areas. I'll hand these out to you all also. This is a list. There's a list here. On this, you can see Cora Island is to the far north. Columbia Bottoms. You've got close to Stratman Road in there is the Spanish Lake Park, going all the way down to North Riverfront Park, which is a little south of the site. So we think this location will serve as a little bit of a great hub for this. Now, the site also is on I-270, so there will be some highway-oriented uses at the site. And those will be the ones closest to the highway. It'll be a visitor center, a C-store, a hotel, some restaurants. So what we'd normally expect off of I-270 exit area. It then transitions more into as you get closer to the river, takes advantage of the river views that are there, taking advantage for both the exhibition area. We envision residential of the location. And then there's other areas that right now truly are questioned. We don't know what they'll be. As Roman mentioned, we do plan on coming back here for a farm-based code because we think that provides the best vehicle to have both flexibility as to use, but also conformity and consistency as to design, as to materials, as to signage. So we think that would really satisfy and hopefully end up with a really first-class development in this area that'll both open this up for a lot of recreational uses and, frankly, bring the city a lot of tax revenue into this. I will just mention that in a newspaper article there was mentioned that we weren't asking for incentives. Well, that's not accurate. We're not going to utilize TIF, and we're not going to utilize tax abatement. However, we have talked to the city about what's called a sales tax sharing agreement with the city to help pay for infrastructure go in here, because there is absolutely no infrastructure. In that type of arrangement, the city and the taxing agencies would get all of the property taxes, all of the earnings tax, all of the utilities taxes, and the other portion of the sales tax. So it would really, compared to what the city has been getting off of it now, it would be a huge boon for it. Let's see if I can get this thing to move, if I can figure out how to do it. Maybe questionable. How do I get to the next one? Okay, this just shows a closer view of kind of what's around this. You see in yellow the bike path that was linked into the Chain of Rocks Bridge. To the left, you see where the visitor center is. The state of Missouri wants to close that visitor center. And our plan is to build the visitor center in the project. We think it's important where we'll be able to go out. We've talked to the Convention Visitors Commission about having people stationed there. It's the first entrance ramp coming off from Illinois. There's thousands of vehicles come through there daily. It'll allow us also to help people find their way to the other recreational venues that are in this area, Columbia Bottoms and, those uses. See if I can get to the next one now. The question is, how do I find the video? All right. Yep, go ahead and play it. This is a drone shot that the developers had taken to help them market to show it. It's coming from the east, running parallel to the I-270 bridge, approaching the site. And what you'll see right along the shoreline needed stabilization. Many years ago, the city actually used the shoreline as a dump for street lights and things like that. And the shoreline was subject to heavy erosion periodically. The owners have been in the process of cleaning that up and installing a river walk, which is kind of the level area you see further down, and then there'll be a boardwalk on the level above that. And I should note that during this recent high water, Mark reports it was 10 feet below the level of the project. They were out there every day taking pictures of it. And I was calling him every day asking him how it was.
And Roman and I went out and checked.
Oh, did you too? Okay. So this gives you a good idea of the accessibility to I-270, and I'd say this was done to try to help market it to a real estate market. You can kind of see that clump of trees and a little path that's where the bike, in the vicinity of where a bike path would go under the I-270 bridge. I should note that we've worked very closely with Alderwoman Flowers on this for some period of time, and she's fully supportive, and she did in fact send a letter requesting the sloop change to occur. We've also been working closely with, there's not a whole lot of residents in this area. The closest residential is a little south and up on the bluff, kind of parallel to North Riverfront Park, and that's it. And we've been working very closely with them. They're fully supportive also. They actually volunteered to come tonight. We told them they didn't think they needed to. But they're excited about having some possible other places to go to dinner even up there. Because right now people either have to go over to Illinois, they go all the way over to Edwardsville, or they go up 367, that neck of the woods. So they're very excited about having what this project will offer. I'm happy to answer any questions anybody might have. I have with me Mark Repking and Adams, the developer, Mark's the owners. So we're excited about the project. We think it's going to be exciting for the city. It'll be something that will really help us take advantage of the river and of those northern areas.
And you are not going to ask us to flood it?
No.
Councilman Light? Yeah, sure. I know, I've got a couple of...
Scared of me.
No, it's just
No.
Thank you.
I was there when I did. Bill, what do you envision the tenants to be, the buildings, the businesses?
I'll ask Mark, Adam to comment on that.
Well, I'll say that we're early on this. facets of the development. We're positive that the uses are going to be what we portray them to be, but specific tenants per se, we don't have that answer.
So you think there's going to be a gas station?
Correct.
You think there's going to be
Fast food.
fast food?
Fast food and sit-down restaurants, hotel, residential, most likely condominiums for sale, not rented units.
I didn't see those on the plan. Okay. All right.
And as you're aware, the user side of the real estate world has become very demanding. They're not going to commit early on.
Oh, yeah, no, I know. I understand. I just, what's your aspiration? Let's.
Well, what you see, it's labeled concept plan number 02, note it has 2 digits. We know it's going to change.
Could go to
as
99.
it moves forward, but pieces of it are coming into place.
Mm-hmm.
We know we want to take advantage of the river views that are there. We know at the southern part, it makes sense to take advantage of the highway and the highway access there.
Mm-hmm.
We know we want residential. We think that makes a lot of sense, location. Beyond that, it gets, we don't know for sure. For example, there's been some interest in possible RV park, in part of it, on the far northern side of it. RVs are big business. A lot of people travel all over the country in those, and there's a demand for a good quality RV park, especially one that would be accessible to the confluence of the river, Columbia Bottoms, Lewis and Clark things.
How long have you all owned
Yeah, and the
the property?
marina.
Probably purchased in '99.
Oh, so you've owned it a long time. And have you really just owned it and held it? You haven't done anything
Just filled.
other than filled it?
Permits to fill, and we
Yeah.
started that process in '07, so we've been at that for a period of time. And obviously, in '07 was not the best time to start a development, so the economy, we feel it's coming back, so we're going to hopefully take advantage of that.
Sure.
And it's all clean fill, it's construction, demolition waste, a lot of it from the city, street department, water division.
And what is, you're going to have a sales tax sharing arrangement, is that 50/50, 90/10?
We don't know exactly yet because we're still trying to, we first have to figure out what the infrastructure costs are going to be. And in fact, we got a meeting next week to try to hone that down more. Then we have to try to throw a dart at the board as to what the sales tax generation would be. We hope it'd be 50/50, and which kind of follows along the lines of a TIF, except in this case, there is no pilot portion, there's no property tax going into the TIF. That's all going to the taxing entities.
And do you see maybe it would have a SID and a TID?
Possibly. That is correct. And particularly a SID, we do want to have, make sure that the whole project has really good landscaping, good upkeep, good security, that's all important.
Sure.
We do think the security issue is one that's important up there, but we think it's very achievable. There's really only 2 entrances into the project, both off of Riverview. You're not going to come in the river, you got 270, that, and we envision having a camera system and probably kind of a greeting area like you do when you go into a national park. You just have somebody there saying, kind of help guide you and let people know that it's going to be an orderly situation.
One of the questions I had, I've been looking at this and kind of logistically, first responders are too far from there that I'm aware of. The closest first responders I know are down on Broadway and Baden. So that's the first concern I have. Secondly, in this area, when it floods, Riverview shut down. So what we've done is isolated a place from the city for the city.
You raise a very interesting point, and we've actually been in conversations with St. Louis County, and we probably do envision some sort of sharing of arrangements with them regarding first response. Mark tells a humorous story that they had some theft up there at one point. He called the police. Police woman came and refused to fill out the report, but she said, this is not in the city. Mark was insisting that it was in the city. No, you raise an interesting point, and one that's going to have to be addressed. And we think probably through agreements with the county is probably the best way to try to address that.
And you said over the last couple of weeks, obviously, the flooding did not affect it, but obviously our 100-year plan has gone to pot in 23 years. So what are we looking at now? Because obviously this is volatile. Because I said Riverview floods at half the stage.
Well, and he's referring to Riverview further south, waterworks down there, which could impact as to first responders. It's not going to impact much on the business side of this because really not a whole lot of business going to be coming up from the south of Riverview. Most of this is going to be all off of 270. As to the flooding situation, who can predict what the future is going to be? I mean, the Monarch Levee could spring a leak again. If you had a flood the size of 93, maybe other things that would occur, we don't know the answer. But that's one that I'm sure as Adam tries to market this to various users, those users are going to be asking that question. But we do have this experience from this recent flood where it was basically 10 feet below, which...
If you want to just talk about numbers, it was at the crest, it was 42.58 downtown. In 93, that's saying the crest was at 49. So it's 7 feet. We were probably 10 feet from the top of the boardwalk, where the top of where we're filled to. So that you can go, if you say 93 was a 500 year, we should be, and then the businesses will be built up on after that. They'll be level with the current ground. Their foundations are going to be out of the water.
I was over the dock. It has no breach to some kind of boat slip. It doesn't have a breach. So
no, they ride up and down on pilings. So the docks will go up and they'll go down just like in Alton.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. I've been a student of yours for almost 13 years now, Bill, with your creative financing, with learning CIDs and TDDs and TIFs and all that fun stuff. I'm curious as to, out the gate, why you propose a sales tax revenue sharing strategy rather than the traditional TIF or traditional tax TIF, because tax abatement certainly wouldn't help you as much.
The answer to that's easy, Alderman. Sheer necessity, because the fine legal counsel for St. Louis Development Corporation and Gilmore and Bell, they don't believe that the area can be blighted under TIF or under 353 or under Chapter 99. So it can't be blighted under any of those.
Is there a particular reason why?
Basically because it's kind of a greenfield area, never been developed. And
gotcha. Okay.
And you raised it out of the floodplain.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And this sales tax revenue sharing, is that in perpetuity? Is that
no.
How many years you propose or you think that it would run?
We don't know yet. And that's something that, and it will eventually have to come before the Board of Aldermen after we've worked out the details with St. Louis Development Corporation. We don't know yet, because we don't know what the infrastructure costs are, and we don't know yet what the sales tax generation is going to be. I would imagine it would be in the same realm as probably a TIF, maybe 20 years, something like that.
I don't think it'll be near that.
But it may not be that. And that somewhat depends on some of the retailers that may get located there.
Right.
We are hopeful that there may be a fairly major retailer that would fit into the project that could have a major impact. So we really don't know.
And is there state law that allows this revenue sharing deal?
There is. And the use of the funds have to be for public infrastructure. And on this project, there's a lot of need for public infrastructure. Everything from the Highway Department wanting some changes, including a traffic circle on a Riverview, to all the storm sewer, the sanitary sewers, the sidewalks, all the thoroughfares, the lighting, everything.
Well, take that even further, so are there any state programs that you'd be looking at for financing that could complement what you're trying to do, or is this would be all on the city of St. Louis?
We're not aware of any state ones. We are looking at federal funds towards the marina.
Mm-hmm.
There is a grant program that can help cover part of the cost of the marina.
Okay, last question. You mentioned about doing some leasing from the company that's just to the north, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And why would you need to do any leasing of their land if you're not really doing anything past those 70 acres? You have that buffer. It's like being at the Board of Aldermen, right? Committee here.
The answer is, we do want to be sure that there's a buffer to our north. I think the best way of doing that is to try to get that land under some sort of control. They do not want to sell, so we're trying to get it under lease. Now, if you ask about looking at possible funding sources, I will add that it would also make the project a city-county project, and maybe there might be some possibility of some county assistance in some way, shape, or form, since this does function as really a part of North County's economy in many ways.
Under the current administration in St. Louis County?
Mm-hmm.
Good luck. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
One last, you talked about moving the current visitor center, which sits up on that hill, down to this land. Is the state talking about investing in that, or are they just going to lease space from you, or what's the conversation?
Probably operate the visitor center or something with CVC.
They're going to be private, not a state?
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
State just wants to get out of it because they have security problems.
Right.
You will,
They're ready to just
They have
wash their
limited
hands of it.
hours. MoDOT owns the ground. They've got all the costs. Division of Tourism operates the building, or the tourism, and they're not paying any rent. So MoDOT is the driving force to close it.
Okay. So it's just you creating a private visitor center on the land. Okay.
Any other questions of the proponents here? Bill, do you or anyone else have anything to add?
No, I just want to thank you very much for making this change in the strategic land use plan, and then we plan on being back at some point with probably with the form-based code. So that concept number will be added. So we will be back in front of you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
At this point, we're ready to proceed with the public hearing portion of the meeting. Is there anyone here who intends to speak for or against, or in any manner on this issue? And if so, you need to sign up on one of those blue sheets at the back table. Do we have anyone signed up?
No.
So we'll
Just need to open it and close it.
Yeah, so I'd like to go ahead and open the public hearing. Can I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Okay, there's been a motion second to open the public hearing portion of this meeting. All those, or call the roll, please.
Previous roll.
Okay, any discussion, please, previous roll. Hearing none, it's approved. Okay, so I'll go through again. Is there anyone at this time who wishes to make a presentation on this, or provide comment? Seeing none, I'd like to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Previous roll, any questions, any objections, previous roll? Hearing none. Public hearing is closed.
So, Mr. Chairman, as you noted at the beginning, there'll be a written comment period that will extend to the 20th. Staff will compile any comments, have that be part of the follow-up briefing. It may well be brief, given the conversation we've had today at the February meeting for a motion for a vote.
Don, can I, help me understand that process? Is this normal, that you would have a 2-week?
We do it a variety of ways. This is in a pretty far remote part of town, so one of the things we said is we'll keep the comment period open.
Okay.
Have we received any written comments to this point?
No, not at all.
And Don, the way the public is notified is the journal, the daily
Lieutenant record in the journal.
and
And generally, we talk to the neighborhood, all the person to know what's going on.
There's also an article in the staff that mentions at least one appeared on the next STL website. Responses to it, not in a formal plan. Pros and cons from people who read that article.
Why don't we go ahead and move on to item number 4, action item number 4 on our agenda.
Dick Zerriger will do this item. Bill Killing will sit down and rest for a minute, and then he'll be back with us as part of the private team doing the third item tonight.
Good evening. We're seeking approval to conduct a presentation and public hearing for amendment number 16 to the strategic land use plan. And this would deal with the opportunity area study that we talked about. You had an informational item at the last meeting, which would be large-scale changes, mostly from opportunity area to other more specific land use categories based on that study. And we're looking at opportunity areas and also the vicinity around the opportunity. So that's based on the study that's been going on for the last year. The second is a general update, and it's been a while since we did that, I think March of 2014. So there's items that come before the Planning Commission that where the adjacency rule is used or that are approved, and we go back and after it's developed, change the strategic land use plan. Lots of times it goes from something like neighborhood development area to neighborhood preservation. This resolution only approves advertising and conducting presentation and public hearing at future meetings. We think there'll probably be more than one. And so the kind of background information that a future meeting, there would be a staff presentation like this evening, public hearing, a public comment and review period, and then the proposed sloop changes would be either transitions from other uses to other uses based on the opportunity area study, or changes of things that have happened since March 20th that specifically the Planning Commission approves, things like a rezoning, Chapter 99 plan. Or it could be development over time where there's been enough development that an area has changed and there was some action by the Planning Commission. There's plans that we do not see, things like a TIF, but there may be a street vacation or something else. So then we can come back and see that this development has happened, that makes sense to update the strategic land use. So this is more general, keeping the map up to date. And typically on these kinds of strategic land use changes, there's a specific list of items with maps and descriptions of the different areas, the items, and then the Planning Commission either approves it or omits it from this package. And so then whichever proposed items are approved, then that would be the package for a strategic land use plan number 16.
So Dick gave the presentation of us having done this comprehensive look at the opportunity areas. We'll now come back in relevant pieces with advertisements to get approvals for specific areas. We'll sort of do it on the basis of workload, so we're just asking you, we'll give staff the authority to advertise properly for when you can get it in the sequence, and that's what we're asking for tonight.
So I'm saying this is a procedural request.
It's a procedural request because we asked you to give us permission to do the advertisement.
And how do you anticipate breaking those down by ward?
Dick had it, I think there's the opportunity areas citywide, which were about 50. I think there were some...
We were talking about... Especially mixed use, central Florida, the 5 or 6 opportunity areas. There's also nodes of specialty mixed use. That could be another package, maybe the same meeting.
Thematically.
And then, so, if we look at kind of each opportunity area, and of course, I keep a list of things that have changed in the last year and a half that it makes sense to address them and take a vote on them.
Are there any other questions? Comments? Do we have a motion to approve advertising and conduct a presentation and public hearing or hearings at future dates? Was moved.
Previous row?
Okay. Previous row's been accepted. Any objections to use of previous row? Hearing none, the motion's been approved. Thank you.
Roman's up next.
Okay, item 5 on our agenda is chapter 353, lighting study. Roman?
Yep. This is a proposed blighting of the proposed 634 North Grand 353 redevelopment area. The site is 2.5 acres in size. It consists of 10 parcels and is located in the Covenant Blue Grand Center neighborhood. The site is generally bounded by North Grand Boulevard, Samuel Shepherd Drive, Teresa Avenue, and Washington Boulevard. And it's located roughly between Powell Hall and Fox Theater. The existing uses are a vacant office building, a storage building, and some surface parking lots that serve various Grand Center events, as well as Third Baptist Church, which is located on that same block. The Chapter 353 redevelopment plan process is a little different than the 99s and 100s that the Planning Commission reviews usually on a monthly basis. Under Chapter 353, the lighting and redevelopment plan require separate reviews by the Planning Commission and separate ordinances by the development as opposed to doing those jointly. And so tonight, the Planning Commission must make a determination as to whether or not this site is a blighted area. This was initiated by Alderman Marlene Davis, the alderwoman of the 19th Ward, who introduced a board bill which proposed to declare this area to be blighted. That board bill was referred to the Planning Commission by the clerk of the Board of Aldermen for the Planning Commission study and its recommendation. And we have 60 days to get that recommendation over to the Board of Aldermen. The definition of blight is shown on the slide, and that's the definition under Chapter 353 of the Missouri State Law. The city's definition is basically the same, and it's included in your resolution. As part of this project, a blighting study of the area was prepared by Development Strategies, a local consulting firm that specializes in this kind of work, and it was done at the request of a prospective developer. If the blighting is approved by ordinance, the 634 Redevelopment Corporation, which is a redevelopment corporation, is recently formed, made up of principals from the Lawrence Group firm. They would like to establish a Chapter 353 redevelopment plan. And as I mentioned earlier, that plan would be reviewed by the Planning Commission at a future meeting, and again, would need to be approved by ordinance. The proposed development that the developer is proposing is a multi-phase development project. Phase 1 includes a $53 million renovation of the office building which includes a hotel, some office space, and ground floor retail. Phase 2 is a $61 million mixed-use development that would be new construction and include approximately 150 apartments, about 10,000 square feet of office and retail space, and a large parking garage. This again is the site of the redevelopment area. All 10 of these parcels are either owned or under contract by the prospective developer. The office building faces onto Grand Boulevard. The storage building is located at the other end of the block. And then the other buildings that are excluded from the redevelopment area, in other words, not included as part of this, are Third Baptist Church, which occupies this large structure at the corner, and a small single-family building along Samuel Shepherd Drive. These are some selected findings of the blighting study that was prepared by Development Strategies. The office building was built as the Missouri Theater building back in 1920, and it actually was a 3,000-seat movie theater at that time, one of the biggest theaters in the country. It also included some ground floor retail and some office space for doctors and dentists. And the storage building was built back in 1957. The office building has been vacant since 2007 when the city's health department relocated due to problems with the building's various systems. I remember hearing employees' horror stories of being trapped on elevators that weren't working many years ago. And so that building's been vacant for about 8 years or so. The remainder of the site is underutilized, being used as parking lots. The overall vacancy rate of the area increases the risk of fire, crime, and personal injury. The existing infrastructure is inadequate or outmoded, and the office building and parking lots were deemed to be in moderately deteriorated condition. The site was also judged to be an economic liability based on its inability to pay taxes and to attract meaningful investment, and obviously it's had a negative impact on nearby development in Grand Center, particularly being near Powell Hall and the Fox. The photo on the left shows the former Missouri Theater building. It's a 12-story building, about 150,000 square feet in size, and it's included in the Midtown National Historic District. The photo on the right shows some boarded and open windows on the Grand Boulevard frontage. Photo on the left shows some of the storefronts that have been blocked in over time. However, some new windows have been installed on the second and third floors, we noticed. On the right, you can see some of the storefronts have been boarded up over time. There's some damaged terracotta, some boarded up windows, some deteriorated windows. You can see some other boarded up windows at the rear of the building, and a small building that's in pretty sad shape. The photo on the left shows one of the Grand Center parking lots. You can see there are many cracks in the surface parking lot. The photo on the right shows the parking lot used by the church. The photo on the upper left is the storage building I made reference to. That's used by the church. And the three other photos show various parking lots. You can see some telephone poles that are still left over from an alley vacation that occurred quite a while ago. They're probably a little bit of a hazard for people driving around, and some potholes. Lastly, we have a cracked sidewalk on the upper left-hand corner, and the remaining photos show the existing buildings on the site. Third Baptist Church, which is also in that Midtown National Historic District, and the single-family building, which is listed on the National Register itself. So, in terms of comments, the blighting study that was prepared by Development Strategies was reviewed by PDA staff. Staff conducted its own research and verification of the conditions, including the photographs that you saw earlier. The proposed redevelopment area is a blighted area, according to staff, and is in accordance with the definitions both of the city and the state, and staff is recommending approval of the blighting designation. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and Bill Keeling, again from Thompson and Coburn, is here tonight representing the prospective developer. He's also available for questions.
Do we have any questions for Roman?
I guess my only question is that the blighting does not have any negative impact on the church, because obviously insurance-wise, liability, fiscal, any impact on that we don't make to them.
I think the church is actually fully supportive of the project. They're fully aware of the fact that what the Lions Group wants to do. They know that they've entered into agreements as to their parking lots for the Lions Group to move forward with it, and they understand that the blighting is actually probably a positive for them in the area here, because it will allow the redevelopment of this building and really help, long-term help their church there.
Are there any other comments? So the issue before us is we've got a request that the Planning Commission recommend to the Board of Aldermen that the proposed 634 North Grand redevelopment area be declared blighted by determining as blighted and is necessary in the public interest. Do we have a motion?
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to approve this. Are there any comments on that motion?
Procedural question?
Yes.
You know, we passed this out of the HUD committee today. And I heard early on in the presentation, I think, that the attorney for the Board of Aldermen sent it over to the Planning Commission.
Yep.
This is
How
not
does
what
that-
you heard at HUD's. This is the 353, and at HUD's you were hearing the TIF. So different legislation.
Okay.
Yes, I can come in. There's two different incentive things that are running in tandem but on different paths.
So this is the tax abatement?
This is the tax.
This will also be the tax abatement under 353. I might have suggested that a preference would have it occur under the LCRA statutes, but it's coming this way through 353.
Okay.
And there's
Never mind.
the reason for that is there's a procedural ordinance in the revised code of the city that says that the clerk sends it to here and bounces it back and back.
Okay.
As opposed to it starting with us and getting
Yeah.
sent back.
Yeah, okay, never mind.
Yeah, but you're right. Easy to be realized that today there was another whole series of board bills related to the blighting, related to the TIF process.
Right.
It's the same study.
We're not done with this because we'll be back, once it's in ordinance form as blighted, then we'll trigger the redevelopment process.
And then there'll probably be a SID and a TID, right?
No,
No.
actually, it's not this,
Okay.
at least not yet.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions?
Previous role?
Previous roll been requested, is there a second?
Second? Or previous?
Yes.
No.
Previous roll's
It's already
been
It's been
requested.
moved in second.
Any objections to use of previous roll? Hearing none, the motion passes.
Thanks. So I'm going to give a presentation on vacancy, that actually Michael has already seen, 99.9% of that.
I will catch up on that 1%.
Yeah, right. It's one slide to run, I'm sorry. One slide. So, many of you have heard us talk about vacancy. This is just an informational presentation. We are a city that lost population, you know that. We have challenges from that disinvestment. Over the last year, there has been a tremendous amount of us connecting with national folks that help interested in this. Tracy Boaz, who's one of the planning commission members who is the State Department of Conservation, has funded for 2 years now, not personally Tracy, but the Department of Conservation, assistance to the city with through the Sustainability Office for something that we'll show you at the end, And most recently, since July, has paid for a landscape architect to be on my staff 2/3 time. And her mission is to rip and vacancy. This is a broad overview, gave the same presentation to Cabinet, gave the same presentation, buckled this one slide to Community Group. You're going to find some slides that have a lot of detail in it. I'm going to gloss over those, but you know that it's there. This is sort of a grounding for things that we'll be doing in the future. I'm a planner. I can't do this without reminding people that, we're a metropolitan area. This simple graphic has the lighter I think it's the 1950 urbanized area of the metropolitan area, and the darker is the most recent expansions to that. We're the core city. We've never expanded. We have the population of 318. We have a density of over 5,000 people per square mile. Our sister city across the state has a density, Kansas City has a density of 1,400 per square mile. Associated, yes, that we have vacant units, we have loss of population. I'll go quickly. I like to remember and show this. This is Pruitt-Igoe. Pruitt-Igoe's at the bottom of the slide. The area to the north was intact. And then, guess what happened? This is just a comparison to 2014. We have a version that will give you steps along the way, but it's not what it was. And with the steps along the way, that vacancy did not happen overnight. It's happened through the series of decades since 1973, when the demolition of Pruitt-Igoe began. And so the area to the north, as many know, the grassy area is the Pruitt-Igoe vacant site, 34 acres. 34 acres vacant since 1973. The area to the north with the outline is what we addressed last February. It's the Chapter 99. It's 100 acres. It's for the National Geospatial. It's 76% vacant, and that was a stair step through time. Still though, other parts of town has fabulous architecture, and in many ways, density remains. Density matters. We're an urban place. We want to be the urban walkable place. And I should add, bikeable. Oh, I didn't even get Jennifer to turn around. Good gosh.
I smiled.
And we've lost 66% of our peak population. Yet, today, now, we're more densely populated than these other places that consider themselves urban places. Those are just samples from top 25 cities. Jacksonville, I don't know why we can call that a city. It's 800 square miles. The state of Rhode Island is 1,200 square miles. But, San Antonio, you think of as a city, Denver, my home, former home, Nashville, but they're less densely populated than we are. Sure, we have some challenges with that loss, I'll let you just glance at these. Have older housing units, of course, but historic preservation is not a bad thing. This is really the capture slide. We'll tell you is that there's about 130,000 parcels in the city, and just the snapshot here in the boldness you can see is 25,000 that are vacant properties. That's rounded off. This is stylized stuff. It's 24,700 or something. But we often, in this particular floor, it's reminded that LRA is housed here. But not every vacant building or vacant land in the city is LRA. And in fact, with us doing our data work, we've standardized this so that we can take this snapshot in time, and you can see that this is from January 15th of 2015, that was our ratio. You'll see this pattern of the block pattern in some more slides. I'm not going to go into the detail, but obviously one of our situations is it's not uniformly bounded by the end of city blocks. It's haphazard. It's in various places. But that's the snapshot. I'm going to add that the privately owned properties are unimproved properties. but that might mean there's a parking lot on it. So one of the things that we're doing in the spring of this year, we've arranged for a team of AmeriCorps volunteers, I forgot how many in number, 20-something in number, in a 3 or 4 month stint, and they're going to go look at all 25,000 properties, verify what the building division has said, and give us more data on the qualities of those vacant properties to make a sound decision. Just for a little bit of reminder about this consolidation, you look at all those black X's or black rectangles, you add them all up, and if you condense them together, they would be the size. There's the bigger rectangle there is the size of Forest Park, and size of Forest Park plus that additional sort of about 50% of Forest Park. Put that together, if you consolidated all those parcels, that's how much you have in the city of St. Louis. It's about 2.5.
Is that lots? Is that vacant lots or vacant lots and houses?
That is
Land.
vacant land. You know, I asked myself a question last time I gave the presentation, and I think that was my answer.
All right.
Because now we're going into vacant buildings. This is just a good reminder. They're both LRA and private, and you notice some of the aldermen have participated with us, and we've used it sometimes, something called the market value analysis, which is a citywide analysis of the residential market, and it shows areas of distress in housing markets. My punchline to that is many people know, certainly there's vacant land and vacancy. And vacancy is the term we use to describe vacant buildings, vacant land, private and public, but there's also a southeast city portion that has a growing issue with it. More vacant buildings than vacant land, different types of challenges. This is just for a little reference. There are parts of town where there is no population. Obviously, some of that includes the cemeteries and the industrial areas, but in some cases not.
It's a different population in the cemeteries, though. It's just a different population.
It's a different population. They only vote at the general elections. They don't really primaries.
Really low.
And you can see that we've added to the statistical matrix here city blocks that have fewer than 10 people. And you'll hear me talk about this a lot, is that where there are challenges, there are also opportunities. Those of you that have seen the Pruitt-Igoe, the Myth movie, and if you haven't seen it, I should show it again. It's flabbergasting to see a movie that talks about the development of Pruitt-Igoe and has news interviews from the town of people that were moved from the city. And two things you realize at that time is that at one time when the city had a population of 856,000 people, it wasn't the most pleasant place to live. There were slums. It was bad. Also you get that feel in that movie. You also get reminded that human behavior has at times not been very prideful, and the innuendos and what people say in newscasts about moving is just atrocious. Leaving that vacancy, the Pruitt-Igoe, we now are looking on that with National Geospatial. This is a map of where the MSD, in order by the EPA, is supposed to work on green infrastructure. Vacant land becomes an asset for that and an opportunity. And it matches much of where our vacant land is. So we're working with that. This is just a simple one. I think it's 1994. So if it's a rectangle that's dark on this map, LRA has owned it since 1994 or earlier. I'm not going to go through all these. You're going to see two sets of these. This is just the LRA, or the St. Louis Development Corporation's ownership, and you can see pictorially, and you can see with the statistics how much of a given block is vacant and how many blocks we have of that category. Well, you think development's easy. Well, there's only 7 blocks where it's 100% owned by the city. And Paul McKee area has much of this. So that's part of the challenge. You do this with LRA and private. Obviously, there's some changes, but you get the idea. We're have this scattered vacancy, which is even a greater challenge. And I sometimes get this wrong, and with my eyesight, I might do that even tonight. But the base maps here, both left and right, is the city of St. Louis. You can see Forest Park. So again, if you combine all the vacant land, so it is vacant land, and the square mileage is about 3.3, you can see it superimposed on Forest Park and a little bit to the east. If that was the equivalent, it's 53% of St. Louis land area. If we transpose that to a third city, to Boston, that would be 7% of Boston. Move to the right. That is the amount of vacant land in the city of Detroit, 21.4 square miles, superimposed in St. Louis. If their degree of vacancy was in St. Louis, that's what it would look like. It's a high percentage of Detroit. You do that common denominator to the city of Boston, if that much vacancy was in Boston, it'd be 44% of Boston. Talked about the market value analysis. We use that frequently. This is just a reminder that we should use that to help us with decision-making as to what's appropriate and what to do. That's a reminder that it's a good reminder to me, because it's a reminder I like to remind everybody else about. It's not just data and data about a place, it's about proximity. So adjacency matters, because if you're building off strength, if you're not in the best of steads, but you're next to strength, there's an opportunity for you. Zero in again on this area down in South East St. Louis. There the problem, of course, is not vacant land, it's vacant buildings. And the foreclosure crisis caused a bit of hell there. Successes and opportunities. So this is the picture that I sometimes say look a little bit like Detroit, but it's a partnership. It's land that was partially LRA, partially purposed for the process. It's now St. Louis Housing Authority and McCormick-Barron, and they converted this from that to that. That's North Sarah. It's about 2/3 of the way from the Wendell Marketplace to Dr. King. Dr. King is 3 or 4 blocks to the back of the photography. So yes, using vacant land, and in this case, it's in a highly urban form. In that sort of immediate area, so the rectangle that looks like the state of Nebraska up on the map, that's in total about a 10-block area. The very top of the screen is Dr. King. The very bottom of the rectangle is the development I just showed you. Behind the mayor, and I wish the mayor was standing just about a foot to the right.
That's why we saw the pictures on your end. You don't like what the mayor is saying at this point.
So that building, which was in the process of being demolished, and to the left of the glum-faced Fred Wessels was an occupied building that we met the owners. And she reminded us that building that's being demolished had been vacant for 14 years. And she raised her kids next to it and all that good stuff. The point I'll make, this is a program that we did towards the end of the 2014 fiscal year. We're planning, looked across the city, did a juxtaposition about degree of vacant buildings and crime, and came up with this area as where those two things crossed and intersected, probably. And we demolished every vacant building in the 10-block area with a handful of exceptions. This is not in the historic district. The handful of exceptions were ones I just didn't have the heart to do. They're gorgeous, and we need to try to do that. We're trying to use this as a model. We are using this as a model. We didn't track enough on data. We're doing some retroactively. But the version I use is that before we did the demolitions, I drove through this area with a young woman that doesn't come out here very often. And you drive down these streets and you see that vacant building or something, and the action would be, holy blank blank. That is horrible. We did the demolitions, did the same tour again, and you could start, you weren't blinded by the blight, and you could see the new little porch around the back, you could see the tended garden, that type of thing. It makes a difference. It's a removal, but it makes a difference. This happens to be on page. Those were two of the dilapidated houses that we took down. Oh my gosh. So, it's part of trying to do something that's focused versus one-on-one, one-to-one, and be relevant. Got to remember, livable, walkable, our historic resources are just that. We've been very successful with that. It's part of these neighborhoods. We know that story. When I show this out of town, it's a good reminder to them. It's back to this overlap with the challenges. And in specific here, the large green space is Calverty's Cemetery, divided by the neighborhood by a railroad. So that neighborhood is Baden. Baden is primarily housing. There are some green spaces there. Along the railroad, there's the warehouse and industrial building. To the right of that is a green space that's a park. To the left of it is a green space that is an MSD buyout. There's also an MSD buyout where they're buying a bunch of houses out and going to demolish and put in their green infrastructure. We're now working with them. Alderman Boyd and I and others a couple of years ago had not the most successful meeting with them about a project in his neighborhood, but with the help of landscape architects, we're now looking at what can we do with these areas to make them be less of just an engineered solution and more of an amenity to the neighborhood in some fashion. And that's where Tracy's coming in, and we're exploring that. And we're about 3 slides from the end. This is 2 neighborhoods. One is Gravois Park, down in that area where the MVA shows some stress and vacant buildings. But the exception here is that we made buildings be dark footprints. So you see that there's not many vacant land in Gravois Park. And the map on the left, Jeffrey, Alderman Boyd, is Wells Goodsfellow. The squiggling line that goes across it is the MSD demarcation line. To the top of the slide is what's in the Bissell watershed, is the green infrastructure. To the south is not. And it's hard to see in this, but that map, again, has building footprints. When you look at it in hard copy, you can tell, oh boy, there's a whole heck of a lot of vacant land here because it doesn't have a footprint on it. And then there's some coding on it so that the properties that are owned by MSD are coded, properties that are owned by LRA are coded, and properties that are in tax arrears or have been in tax arrears during the last 3 years are also coded there. Big challenge. And also all the condemned buildings are identified by a dot of one color. All the vacant buildings that show up in the vacant building survey are another color. I say all that because you may have heard recently that MSD was putting in a submittal under its consent decree ruling of the $100 million they're doing demonstration programs with. Over the last 4 years, I think it's been, they've had to been under the watchful eye of EPA, got to behave, do tests, yada, yada, yada. They're now putting a proposal in at the end of the year saying this is the result of the test, this is how we want to use the money going forward, this is what our successes were. We've worked with them quite closely during the last couple of months to hear the engineers say that a vacant candidate for demolition of a building, remove it, and that vacant lot is positive to the consent decree. And so towards that end, Going forward, of that $100 million, $1.3 million has been spent on on demolitions. The total is going to be $15 million in the Bissell watershed that we can spend on demolition. And these maps are just being prepared as we speak to have a standard base for all 55 neighborhoods that are in the Bissell watershed, so we can share and talk about it with neighborhoods and with other departments and with aldermen about this is not a willy-nilly thing. It's in being tempted to just use this money to eliminate blight. May be the case, but let's look at it strategically. Let's remind ourselves the city's committed to keep its vacant buildings demolition funds around. This is something, this tool, this now $13.5 million is going to be used as we develop a strategic plan over the use or reuse of vacant land and vacant buildings and making amenity spaces in addition to. One of the things, when you've taken the blight away and you made it be a positive, you've also increased the value of land around it. In some cases, and in Jeffrey's world, I'll say you've reduced the volume of available land for development, because in some ways there may be too much, and enhance the value of where you can concentrate back to the notes. This is something that just happened in the 22nd Ward, and it's a group, Fresh Coast. It's a for-profit group. We kind of started at that. Originated in Flint, Michigan. And there, through some good scientists, have made this hybrid tree that they've come to us and they like to plant on vacant land. And so we picked a pilot looking through the city for some of their specs. It came up in the 22nd Ward. Alderman Boyd convened a neighborhood meeting, and LRA is in the throes of finalizing a lease with this provider of putting these trees in. They have some understory amenities. They maintain it. On the larger sites, they'll put some walkways and paths in it. And I think the area that we've grand totaled is highlighted there, and it's about 3 acres. Of a different use. We've had some visiting sessions with our SC2 people, Historic Cities, Historic Communities, people in that. We had some great students work here last summer intensely. One of our challenges, of course, is we have so much of it, when you take bites to it. They did something called typologies. There similar natures of how vacancy clusters, so you can have similar solutions. They wrote a wonderful report. They produced that poster, and they offered solutions. And their fun was they thought the city of St. Louis looked like a pepper, some parcels and peppers, and then they have a little scale of low-hanging, easy things to do are mild peppers. The harder things to do are the spicy ones. So that's all on our overview. We use the prime of the pump to get people to be understanding about the issue. And you'll hear more of this. I wanted to share it with everybody.
Don, that was fabulous. Send it to me.
We had a version of this that was much shorter. And Patrick can smile with this because it was at Harvard when we were invited by the Center for Community Progress to Vacant Lands to their pay. We just had to get ourselves there to 3.5 days of all this. We had to bring something from our community to talk about it. And there were only 8 cities there from across the country. But the slideshow had to be timed. It automatically changed. And part of this is pirated from that, part of it is from and so I had to do the narration to match the timing, and I did pretty good.
Don, did you say you're developing a strategic plan for addressing vacancy?
Yes.
Okay. What's the timeline for?
It starts January 26th.
And you're hoping it takes how long to create it?
Let's say not a year. Yeah. And false to say it's only starting then, is that the SC2, we had a brainstorming session with one of their technical folks, with about 25 city folks involved, inclusive in the city, a couple aldermen. We learned some things from that. We went to the Harvard session, and we have some other EPA things, and then the other punchline is that I can't speak enough about the Center for Community Progress, we sent some people to their annual conference. This year it was in Detroit. 800 people go. This is an issue across the country that's just catching, New York now, two quick things. LRA was the first land bank in the country. There are now many more. The state of New York has now allowed the creation of 10 throughout their state. The Center for Community Progress has written a book on that, literally. And we were invited to an annual competition of these top folks to apply for technical assistance from them, and a couple cities would get it for free. And we've gotten 200 hours from them for free. They've made one preliminary visit here, and they'll make another visit shortly. And that will start the community part. We've also, a number of entities have started percolating, looking on certain issues. One of them is the Equifax Foundation that's COPAS. But one of my hesitancy is I think there's a thought that the 200 hours has some multiple tasks to it, and I don't think we can get the whole strategic plan done in that. We can't, but we're going to get some frameworks to it. Done with that while we have the very best, and we may employ them some more. Patrick, you have anything to add? Patrick was in Cambridge.
I'm just looking forward to it. I think this is I don't want to call it a rare opportunity, but it's one of those opportunities where our team is matched up to the national sort of attention. And so we've been given a lot of opportunities to reach out to experts for their help in this area that's obviously a huge issue for our city. So Center for Community Progress, like Don said, is just chomping at the bit to be able to come back to St. Louis and work with the First Land Bank to put us on a path to start using this vacant land as more of an asset than it is an eyesore. So it's an exciting period of time, I think, for us.
And one of the things, there's some lawyerly parts to this, and I'll mention two quick things. Is one, when we were in Boston, we learned about four things. I thought we were going to learn about three things. I got to remember the four things. But one was about vacancy itself, vacant land. The other was about code enforcement. And the third was about tax policy. Yeah. And they all work together. And the fourth was, and boy, this was tough, is they had some national gurus on how to make change. And they talked, doing things right in your everyday job is good. You ought to learn best practices. But they gave us sessions on how to make real change. And we were surprised to have that be part of this, but that was an evidence of how serious we've learned and think this is an opportunity, because it's not all going to go away at once, but it's out there. We got to do it.
And this isn't just turning vacant lots into Cypress Tree Farms or something like that. This is them coming in and looking at LRA and being like, how long have you guys been doing this? You are the first land bank, and there are new ways to do stuff, and this is how we're going to help you find those ways. And so they're going to look locally and at the state level. Kansas City just started their first land bank last year, right?
A little bit of all that. So we've been partnering. Kansas City got to go to things, so we've been partnered with them, paired lawyers, land bank and land bank people. And the other thing I want to mention is that, Otis and I have known each other since the day he arrived. Our offices were next door to each other. LRA gets beaten up a much, and I'm saying we're going to go to Boston and learn what we're going to learn, and it's going to be good and bad. And, brother Otis was,
He was,
oh, okay, Don, we trust you. We're on this road, and,
he's into it now.
he's into it now. One of the things that they've asked to do, and we're going to have the EPA hopefully do this, is analyze, I don't know if I told David this yet, analyze every LRA transaction since the creation.
Just a look on tape.
And the idea here is they're fascinated with us being the first. Laws and rules have changed, so the current generation, and so there was the thought about, comparing ours to them in terms of what regulatory powers we have. And they said, we can do that, you can do that, but why don't you analyze what's actually happened to your inbound stuff, what's left, your inventory, why, how, or what you can at least glean from that. Part of that is from the slide on the that I showed about property since 1994, and there ought to be some learning curve from that. So that's on the books too. Thank you all.
Thank you.
On the delegated items, we have one that is over in 1 million. Do we need to address that, Don, or?
Not in particular. We just like to call it out. No concerns about it.
Are there any questions on that one or any of the other delegated Chapter 99 lighting studies? And on street vacations, I assume there was none. It's got an entry, then they don't.
Right.
There are air rights at BJC Hospital. For sidewalks.
Do we charge for air rights?
Rich?
Huh?
Rich?
Yeah.
Do we charge for air rights?
I don't think so.
Is that
We also don't charge for vacation.
I don't think so.
other cities I've heard charge?
Well, have heard that?
Mm-mm.
Don't exactly have a ton of skyscrapers taking up room, right?
No, we don't. But, I'm always looking for a way to make a buck.
Yeah, I don't think so.
We don't.
That's another option.
Do we have any other new business that we need to bring up?
That's right.
That's right. And there's no reason to have a closed session?
No.
Okay.
No, Bill's here, Sorry.
Well, in that case, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Adjourn.
All right.